G'day, everybody. How's it going out there? Well, last episode was kind of a bit somber, so let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? So during this pandemic that we've been having, there's been a thing that's happening with these things called late night shows, late night comedian shows with human beings in it, and basically a lot of them have had to go home, or basically run recordings from their house in a sort of vlogish style manner. And most of them have gotten into the swing of things at this point, with many different varying individuals having their own different setups. In other words, they are doing what I'm doing right now. Only I was here first, so welcome to my world, late night show hosts. But interestingly enough, there's been two particular Daily Show alumni who had gotten their own shows after their stint with the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. That is Samantha Bee and John Oliver. Now, these two individuals have had interesting segments during the coronavirus. One was Samantha Bee, and the other one being John Oliver. Samantha Bee is sort of like recording outside. She's the one of the few people recording on the great outdoors, so good on her. Everyone else is doing this boring thing indoors, right? Like myself here. But anyways, so there's a full article and the link in the description below if you want to read through it and not listen to me ramble about it for 30 minutes. But if you're here to listen to me ramble about it for 30 minutes, you came to the right place. So here's the Samantha Bee thing here.
Furries. Yep, I'm at a furry convention. Is everyone okay?
I don't know. Is everything okay? So that's not Samantha Bee. That's her correspondent Amy. She is doing a recording for at a convention, and she's talking to Peter Cat right there. I believe that's Peter Cat. He's sort of one of the PR people. So interestingly, This particular segment was well thought out. It's about 5 minutes long. It took a lot of effort. She talked to a bunch of furries at the furry convention, and I'll put a thing up on the card up at the top. So basically, in that particular interview, they talk about the upcoming political thing because it was early on. It was pretty late into the Democrat primaries, so that was sort of a big question they asked is about Bernie versus Biden. Yeah, gosh, it's been forever, hasn't it? It's been about 3 months, I think. Whew, God, time flies. Except it doesn't. It's been moving it's been the longest. It's been the longest April ever because hey, we just had to fill out taxes, right? It's the longest April ever in the United States. So basically, we have these guys here. Now, interestingly, they get into talking about social political things within the furry fandom. The furry fandom is a community that has a lot of different varying political beliefs. There's no, there's the cohesion thing is the interest in anthropomorphic animals and their characterizations and playing characters and stuff and things like that, etc. So obviously you can have that and have different social political stints. I mean, for Pete's sake, there's propaganda from North Korea using a hedgehog and a squirrel, right? So you could use anthropomorphic animals to sell whatever political thing you're trying to sell. So it's really separate from those kind of things. Though a majority that get out and go to the cities and go to the conventions and are social beings tend to be more left-leaning, some individuals who are not so much can be right-leaning. And they kind of do discuss this in the further segment and go over the issue of the Rocky Mountain Fur Con issue, which was one of the biggest sort of political stints that kind of introduced Boozy Badger to the furry fandom, as well as caused the closure of a Rocky Mountain Fur Con. So she goes into that a little bit. And, what is this? No, not you. Gosh, am I going to have to do this? I'm going to cut this part out here.
The Fur Nation created videos to rally against the hate.
This was their logo, and they wore it in an armband fashion.
They literally wear armbands that have like Nazi propaganda on it.
So they were talking about the Furry Raiders at that point, which is the organization that was seen as tied to Rocky Mountain FurCon's eventual demise. That was the thing that I had talked about in that video that was just put out, that was kind of looked out there. That was 3 years ago, man. Whew. I've changed houses since then. I've changed cameras since then. A lot of things have changed since then. But one thing hasn't changed, and that is everything else. Well, some things have changed, but usually not in the positive sense. So as a thing, thank you, Samantha Bee, for using my clip. I have to find it funny too that it's a 3,000. It only has 3,000 views, and it was used in a mainstream television segment. And I always find it ironic that one of the 3,000 people is like an intern for a TBS or something. Just kind of weird to me. I don't know. But anyways, I got fuzz in my face, which is always great in these things. But at the end of the day, that is basically Samantha Bee's segment. Now, a lot of furries were sharing it around, and it was a good, wholesome segment about some of the wholesome side of the furry fandom, about the sort of the more innocent side of our gatherings and having fun and having fun with it, and having fun being a nerdy sort of culture. But unfortunately, Samantha Bee didn't get the spotlight in the fandom for too long, because about a week later, another segment happened on another show, late night show, with another Daily Show alumni by the name of John Oliver. Now, John Oliver needs no introduction. He does the Last Week Tonight, where Samantha Bee does Full Frontal. Unfortunately for me, though, John Oliver's segment wasn't really on the thing, because it sort of had some adult content on it. But basically, there is a Wikipedia article about the whole situation here, which I'll put a link in the description below, about the painting Stay Up Late, and its history and infamy sort of within the furry fandom. Stay Up Late is a painting that was given out was done as a charity auction by a person in York County, Pennsylvania, by a person who goes by the name of Biohazard. I think they have the character Alice the Rat, and they sold a bunch of paintings at their local Gallery 33 television show. And John Oliver basically came out and said, "I want this painting," for some odd reason, of rat erotica. It is the year of the rat, I suppose, so I won't judge too hard, I suppose. But basically, John Oliver, was getting a little thirsty for needing rats that stay up late, and he wanted it as part of his gallery, and he ended up getting that. How he did that, though, he basically offered $1,000 for the painting from the person who bought it back in the 1990s, I think it was, early 1990s. And basically offered, I think it was $20,000. I can barely read this in my fursuit head. I think I see it. Yes, it's $20,000 to that charity, to York County Food Bank, in order to get more money to that and to sweeten the deal a little bit. And he ended up getting it, which was fortunate, because a lot of furries were worried in the days following the episode's air that the painting wouldn't have been found, because dead ends happen all the time. This is not a recent thing. That things can change over time. So here is I'll put a link in the description to this thing here. I'll put it up in the cards. It's a video on YouTube called Art 1992, and it is actually a YouTube channel by the person who did the art. I believe it's Alice the Rat here. Basically it shows the different things that they sort of got away with before he was kicked off. Like basically the people who bid the charities things kind of took the self-corrective action of being worried about the FCC pulling their licensing due to how risque these photos were getting, these art renditions were getting. So they basically told them it's like, well, we can't sell this on here because it is a like all ages channel. So
is watercolor Stay Up Late by Brian Swords of York. It's 24 by 18 inches.
Well, Brian's work began, the Biohazard series began as a statement about brutality to experimental animals, and has developed into a whole scene of these rather unusual rats involved in all types of normal human activities. This normal human activity needs very little description.
And here's the thing about it. Like, the reason that this is art, and the reason that if you haven't seen the full video of this, you do need to check it out. It is definitely a time capsule of mainstream media versus furry art. Because back then, if you wanted to get erotica or things like that, you had to like go out and get it. I know the internet gives you instant access to a lot of these things without having to worry about going out and being embarrassed about it. Heck, if you want to order condoms for yourself, you could just go on Amazon, get some condoms, and have them shipped to your door. You no longer have to go to the grocery store and go, could you put those, like hiding them between, like, the toilet paper and the paper towels, and, like, you're just like, could you just put that in the bag? Sir, I need a price check on the condoms. They're not scanning. God dang it. It's embarrassing, okay? It's you'll never know. You modern adults, you'll never know what it was like. I barely knew what it was like, but like I was a cashier. I had to sell some condoms in my time, okay? Normal human activities. I love that phrase. They're engaged in normal human activities. You got to hand it to PBS announcers. They're very good at their job. Some of them, the funny is the variance of reaction. Some of them are very good at keeping it like low profile. Others of them are like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed. And the varying ways they deal with the situation is amusing. So if you haven't seen it, go on and check that out. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna edit that a little bit. Anyways, but John Oliver wasn't done with the furry fandom yet, even though he had done all this stay up late stuff. And for this one, basically just about a few weeks later, as the whole protests have started to gather steam, there were people online trying to do like hashtag White Lives Matter in order to, they're using a hashtag in order to counter the Black Lives Matter movement in the eyes of George Floyd. And John Oliver saw somebody who in the furry fandom who did a little otter piece on that. Now, before I hit play here, you probably saw this pop up a little bit earlier, but I gotta make it pop up now. There is a bit of a thing here, and hopefully this covers it properly. Here we go. Ready?
Certain members of the furry community have joined in the fight, posting things like, hey, hashtag White Lives Matter racists, look at my fursona's knotted ottercock, thanks, smiley face, which is excellent. And thanks to many, many contributions like what you've seen so far. Even so...
Okay, so there was a otter character, and I can't remember his name, and I should have remembered his name for this thing, but I'll look at it again. They did not censor that, and I didn't censor it here, but they've locked their Twitter account since. Radiant Otter, I believe it is.
Thanks, smiley face.
So, the reason I have that, the eggplant there is because this is completely uncensored. They got some breasts, and they got the schlong. So, while John Oliver might be able to get away with that on HBO, in that way. I would certainly not test my fortitudes on a hi eggplant. Are you my new pin now? I got an eggplant pin. Anyways, yeah, I'm keeping the eggplant pin for a while. So, anyways, it's live. What are you gonna do? Basically, no thanks. No, you're distracting me. I gotta get rid of you. Get out of here, eggplant. I'll have you on the Parmesan later. Anyways, HBO might let him get away with that censorship stuff, but obviously I want to take my chances with the YouTube on showing that kind of thing. However, I gotta say, John Oliver, it's kind of a bit weird that you kind of just like evolved from rat erotica to that in so short a time. I mean, you called Glenn Beck a thirsty bitch. I mean, my God, man. You know, and on the erotica thing, you know, I could kind of see it kind of part way, you know. You're British. You're like, oh, it's an art piece from an exotic culture. I must have it for my collection. I mean, that's like British people trying to buy priceless artifacts from exotic cultures and put it in like a collection is about as British as tea, crumpets, and I suspect being a chimney sweep for a job. I don't know, but as an American myself, I'm not quite sure of the eccentricities. But buying exotic artwork from other people's cultures is kind of very British. All right, that's what I'm saying. But this is the second time you've poked the fandom, sir. You keep poking at us, man. I don't know. Is it, what are you expecting something out of us? Are you expecting like? Here's the thing, John. Ask Samantha Bee. And by the way, isn't it kind of silly that like the furry fandom like really latched onto John Oliver's takes on this? And poor Samantha Bee, she made a 5-minute segment on the furry fandom. John Oliver did like 2 segments of two really kind of not planned but somewhat planned segments that sort of did interactivity with it, but at the same time didn't like cover too much about things. They basically kind of used the erotica as sort of a staple, and to kind of like present like to draw attention to what his segments were about. And oh, by the way, the erotica thing wasn't just for John's own questionable tastes, I guess. It wasn't for his own usages, I guess I should say that. It was a little bit because he wanted the main concept of trying to get the Stay Up Late poster was supposed to be around the fact that it was easier. The concept was it is easier for him to acquire this random artifact from history on the internet than it is to get a coronavirus test, because this was during the earlier stages of the coronavirus. That's sort of what the whole premise of the thing was. I think it was an excuse to get rat erotica, but to each his own. It's like, I'm doing this for educational purposes. No, you're not, John. That is erotica. Don't lie to me, man. And clearly, he's got him or his writing staff is getting into some interesting social circles, I gotta say. But I mean, we're a community, John. The funny thing is that you have two kind of coverages here. You have Samantha Bee, who's covering sort of the regular style of sort of trying to gather some of the wholesome side of the fandom, like just gathering and talking about things and having a nerdy time in these animal costumes. And then you have John Oliver, who's sort of covering the raunchy, expressive side of the fandom, and sort of the little infamous times that some of the adult side has gotten mainstream coverage. Then again, like the otter thing was kind of his fault for that. And also there's an additional thing for the otter thing. There is in the article, there is a link of Radiant Otter talking about his experiences on how John Oliver's coverage impacted himself and sort of the attention that he got from that and his sort of response to that reaction. And so it kind of goes through his trials and tribulations with that. Basically, he was not prepared for it, and he honestly didn't want to have that much attention drawn to himself. So he kind of like locked up his Twitter account, right, to try to stymie the amount of attention that he was getting from John Oliver's segment. Which kind of brings me into the whole premise of sometimes John Oliver does these random things and he doesn't really confer with anyone, and like he's very orderly, but he has somewhat of a chaotic nature to his style of coverage, right? He'll draw attention to things that people normally don't, and then like the consequences of that kind of like fall through. Like the Furry fandom was worried that he wasn't going to find the Stay Up Late poster, but like the York County Food Bank got a hold of that segment or saw that segment, and they were freaking out. They were like, "We really do need the help. You guys need to find this painting." And it's like it kind of felt a little bit like that's a lot of undue pressure to the person who owned that painting. Maybe that person thinks that painting is priceless, and like, you know, it's not my business as to whether the person who had that picture wanted to sell it or not. Obviously they did, because they did sell it. But there is sort of a duress under it when you tie a sell to charity, right? It's like, here, I'll give you $1,000 and I'll give charity $20,000. It's like, you kind of feel like you're a little bit under the gun. You kind of feel like you're a little bit under duress. Because then it's like, well, I want charity to get $20,000 and things like that. But at the end of the day, luckily they were able to get what they got. But I'm watching you, John. I'm watching you. I'm making sure that you do it. Because if you're like, I do like John Oliver's show, because like he talks about political issues that might not get mainstream coverage. Unfortunately, due to the sort of growth of MSN and all this kind of stuff, you know, they kind of do all that, and he covers like little things like flood insurance, and you know, he was covering police and incarceration and things like that before it really was a mainstream topic in the modern times. So really, like, he's been doing good coverage on those kind of things, and I think Samantha Bee and all those other all these other shows are also kind of vying for, you know, covering things that maybe the MSN doesn't really care about or doesn't take seriously, right? And what better way of covering things that people don't take seriously than doing it through comedic means, right? So anyways, I think that's about it for that story. So check out the story in the link in the description below, and basically kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. How did you see these segments, and how did you feel about them? We will see you again next time. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good one.